Hi, guys. It's Sven from Badass Counseling. So we created the Badass Counseling group on Facebook, and it grew to well over 45,000 members. And we kept getting asked by folks for a support group, a growth group that's more intimate, gives more access to me, Sven, if possible. So the Badass Counseling team got together, and they created Community Plus. For a monthly fee that isn't cheap, you get direct access to me 2 times a month where you can submit your questions directly. Monthly drawings for a small group counseling session with me. Monthly drawings for one-on-one counseling sessions with me. Priority Pass access to go to the front of the waiting list for ongoing counseling with me. Priority Pass access to be considered to be counseled by me on the Badass Counseling Show podcast. Direct access to my top 2 selling video courses, Healing the Soul and Unleashing Your Greatness. Interviews with people who've had success in their soul journey, some well-known and some everyday folks like you and me. And a fantastic opportunity to meet and get to know other men and women who take their healing and growth seriously and who do the work. And a social community feed where folks share their challenges, their struggles, and their triumph. And so much more. So go now to badasscounseling.com. Click on the Community Plus sign-up page for premium content and direct access to me and to like-minded people who are committed to healing, growth, and creating a community of support and happiness.
From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, fine listeners. It's great to have you here checking in. I am Sven Erlandson, the host of this show. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm joined in studio by my team, KC over in the booth, and Rob the Rocket sitting right next to me. Rob, young man, how are you this evening?
I'm feeling reasonably young. I'm doing all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I think we are going to dedicate this show to all the people who have a light cold going on, who might be feeling a little bit sick, a little bit under the weather, who don't want to get their loved ones sick or people they enjoy or just people they like kissing sick. And this is really going out with love and concern for the sickies. And, have a little chicken noodle soup, Jewish penicillin, as they call it out here on the East Coast.
Yes.
And have some chicken noodle soup, get some rest. As my mom would say, drink lots of liquids. And take lots of vitamin C. So if you have a cold, if you're feeling a little under the weather, hey, we're sending you love today, all right? It's no fun. As Mom used to say, it's no fun being sick. So this show is dedicated to everyone who's feeling a little sick, but maybe your loved one who's coming to see you in a few days, or it gives you something to look forward to, and maybe that'll be some incentive to get fucking well, all right?
Good feelings will power you through.
The good feelings will power you through. All right, here we go. First question of the Lightning Round episode is from Jazz McKnight on TikTok. Do you believe in Murphy's Law, and how would one try to face it with grace as best they can? It's an interesting question that on one hand, my show is about, healing our soul and our self and our past so that we can have great relationships and a great career and feel excited about life and be great parents and great family members and friends and so forth. What the hell does Murphy's Law have to do with any of that? That's how it would look, prima facie, on the surface at first glance. But if you think about it, it's really a fascinating question that Jazz just asked. Do I believe in Murphy's Law, and how would one try to face it with grace as best they can? Murphy's Law, that which can go wrong will go wrong, right? And so basically what Jazz is saying is, I'm afraid of things going wrong, and how do I face it with grace once things go wrong? That implies to me someone who has had things go wrong in the past, and I'm afraid of things going wrong, and potentially someone who believes that shit always falls apart for me, or I always screw things up, or things never go right for me. It's funny you say that, because I got hit by a car when I was traveling on my bike, let's just say 20 years ago. And I remember that day, and I had scrapes all over my body. It mangled my bike, all this stuff. And the guy was totally in the wrong. And he tried to drive off, but a bunch of cars stopped him, and it was great. Anyway, the next morning, I was at my apartment after I got all patched up, and I was at my apartment, and I was frying some eggs, and I went to flip them, and they flipped onto the floor. And I go down on the floor because I'm still going to eat them because he's a little bit of dirt. And I'm a guy. I had 5 brothers, whatever, 4 brothers, 1 sister who was tougher than the rest of us, so I always call her one of the brothers. And I go to pick him up, and I'm laughing, and I'm like, man, I just can't win. And in that moment, it struck me that I had been saying that for years. I can't win. I can't win. I realized that mantra had become part of my belief system, and I had to change my language. Because I had to change my belief system that I just can't win. You saying, do you believe in Murphy's Law and how would one try to face it with grace? I fear that you may actually believe that you screw things up or that bad stuff is always going to happen to you. That somewhere you have so much pain inside of you or so much stuff has gone wrong or you've been hurt so many times that you have some sort of programming inside of you that believes either A, you always screw things up, or B, bad things are always going to happen to you. And so you live in a constant state of fear. Otherwise, why would you even ask that question? It's not a bad question. I think it's actually a really insightful question. But it belies a person who is living in fear. And so what I would encourage you to do is begin to drill down. When did all of my pains start that caused me to think that everything leads to pain? And everything falls apart on me. And if you believe that you're the cause of it, who taught me to believe that I'm the cause and that I'm such a train wreck that I always screw things up? Who taught me to believe that I'm fundamentally flawed in who I am? That's what you really need to go into. And of course, my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, will help you in going down into that, okay? But you asked, do I believe in Murphy's Law, that which can go wrong will go wrong? No, not necessarily. It's just because that's sort of this like negative, fatalistic, and I just sort of think of Murphy's Law as sort of a silly thing. But do things go wrong? Yeah. Is there a pain-free relationship? No, there's no such thing as a pain-free relationship. And very often that's what we're talking about. Is there a pain-free career? No, it doesn't exist. And our greatest pains and our greatest setbacks are often the greatest gift and are yielding the greatest fruit. And the pains and the setbacks and the confrontations in relationships always lead to greater connection. I ran into a gal at the gym, a cute gal and real sweet, and she's young. She's like 31 or whatever. And, I've sort of mentored her a teeny tiny bit. Not with her lifting. She's a hardcore athlete, but we talk and so forth. And I talked to her just the other day and I said, how's that new relationship going? She's been seeing a guy for about 6 months. Well, it's been okay. We've had some bumps lately and so forth. I said, good for you. She says, what do you mean? I said, bumps are good. And she says, how? I said, come on, you're a serious lifter. She said, what does that have to do with anything? I said, do you just automatically put 300 pounds on your bar? She says, Sven, I can't lift 300 pounds. I said, but you lift 200 pounds. When you're deadlifting, she says, oh yeah, plus more. I said, when you first started lifting, did you put 200 pounds on your bar? She said, no, that's stupid. I said, of course. So you had to build up to it, right? I said, exactly. She said, yeah. And I said, that's the point. It's the same with conflict. If your relationship gets bigger, if you guys end up getting married, if you guys have kids, you're going to have greater issues of conflict, not the least of which is in-laws. And I said, so these minor scrapes and bumps and bruises are good, and hurtings of feelings are good because you're seeing how each other handles it, and you're learning to handle small conflicts so you can add on more weight later. Just like adding more weight onto the bar, you're getting acclimated. Plus, it's doing you a favor because you're able to look at your partner and see how they handle conflict, and they're able to look at you and see how you handle conflict. And do I really want to stay in a relationship with this person without seeing how they handle conflict? And are they able to talk about problems, et cetera, et cetera? So things going wrong are actually a blessing because it reveals things that can be made better. So, but if you're living in fear, you need to drill down to where those fears are coming from and the pain from those. It still needs to be healed so that you have less fear moving forward. All right, next question. Here's just a quickie. Jeff Medrano says, this is over on Facebook, I've purchased the book, referring to There's a Hole in My Love Cup right here. And Jeff says, I've purchased the book and I gave it to my personal counselor at a federal installation, and she started recommending it to others. I actually hear that a lot, and that's great. I've heard from churches and community centers around the country and overseas that use it, do classes based on it, and therapists that use it. I have clients who are psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists who use it, and so forth. And so I'm just pleased that you're having the courage to do the work, because this book, it's scary as fuck, to be honest with you, because it takes you down into the deep shit. And so if your personal counselor at your federal installation is using it, that is a personal counselor who is taking people deep. That's a good counselor. Stick with that one. All right, next question. Rob, go ahead.
Sven, Marissa on YouTube says, my boyfriend keeps ghosting me for days without even a text, and then makes an excuse that he's busy working 2 jobs to help his family. He keeps asking me to understand. Am I crazy to be upset?
Marissa, I would ask you this question. Is this a deviation from pattern? What has been the pattern over the course of your relationship? You guys may have heard me say this before in some of my online videos that I've done, that people reveal their character through their patterns, although actually their patterns are often fears, embedded fears that they've been conditioned to believe about themselves. But for the most part, that is their character. People reveal their character through their patterns, but they reveal their secrets through their anomalies, their deviations from pattern. Every deviation from pattern is a revelation of some sort. Deviations from pattern, in my work, because I've been doing it so long, I've gotten really good at seeing deviations from pattern in language, in word usage, in inflections in voice. That's why a lot of times some of my best work I do just by phone, by listening to someone. I can hear it. But that's just me. But what I'm asking you to look at, Marissa, is his not texting you back a deviation from pattern? Furthermore, if it is a deviation from pattern, has there been a deviation in his work schedule? And if his deviation from pattern in responding back to your texts happened at the same time he took the 3rd job, then his story of, gee, I'm working a lot, checks out. However, if he has been just texting you less, even though he hasn't, and he used to text you a lot more, and he's not necessarily working more hours, it's a bullshit story, right? He's changed his pattern of behavior, yet there's no explanation. There's no change in his lifestyle that explains it. And someone who is ghosting you, that says to me, that implies to me that this is a change in pattern, and he's just investing less in you. Now, the question I would have to ask you, I'd have to ask you to be really, really honest here, Marissa. I'm not trying to be a dick, okay? I'm not trying to be a jerk. Are you needy when it comes to texts? Do you see yourself as needy? I mean, like, where I need to be texted all the time, or are you asking for just, reasonable amount of check-ins? Just drop me a text on your break. That's all. Just say, hey, hello, how are you today, Marissa? Hey, did that bag of apples that you bought, were they all bad, or was it just those first 2 that we had this morning? Something like that. Or, but if he's ghosting you for days, did she say days, by the way?
Yeah, she says ghosting me for days without even a text.
Now that's bullshit. Ghosting me for days. You know what? Actually, Marissa, you're asking the wrong question. Why are you in a relationship with someone who doesn't text you for days when you clearly want someone who does text you? I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, in all honesty, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody who... Rob, would you want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't text you for days?
No, it would be a real problem for me. Just an occasional, hey, how are you? That's all I need.
Yeah, and everybody's different on this. Some people don't need that. When my girlfriend goes on work, business, travel, literally, I am forgotten. and I've grown to be okay with that. It was so weird to me in the beginning because I'm like, I like texting all the time with the person I'm in love with, but she's just like, she's a bit like ADHD. like admission, and she admits it. And then, I've grown to, learn how to interact with that and so forth. But it's more, she's just hyper focused, and she's a very successful businesswoman. And when it's work mode, it's work mode.
I think business trips are a special case, and that's okay if you don't hear from the person.
And but some people on business trips love to be communicating and so forth. And I don't, and so once we sort of talk that out, but I'm just forgotten, or even if she'll go on or if I go back to, the far north of Minnesota, I may not hear from her. And it's like, okay. So everybody's terms of their relationship are different. But what you are fundamentally saying is, I don't like the terms of this relationship. If you believe that not texting me for days is okay, boyfriend, that's okay for you to think that. But I don't want a relationship with someone who treats me that way. And the bottom line is, Marissa, it sounds to me like you have your answer, because he's basically saying, like it or lump it, but hey, these are my reasons. Now, his reasons may be absolute bullshit. Sure, he may be cheating on you, or he may actually be working a lot. But the bottom line is you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't text you for days. Is that what you really want? I was counseling a woman, and she had been married for years, and she dated this guy, then she dated this other guy. And this second guy that she dated, they had a really strong connection, and things were great. And she said to me this, she said, Sven, every time I text this guy, he will text me right back. He's a great texter backer. He really is. And we have cool conversations, and, the sex is great and all this, but he never initiates text. He will literally text me back within seconds every time I text him, but he never initiates text. And she was cool with that for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it was. And then after a bit, she's just like, no, I want somebody who wants to reach out to me. And I said, are you okay with that being one of your terms? And she said, yeah, I am. So everybody has different terms. And Marissa, what you are saying by him ghosting me and, gee, is this okay? You need to give yourself permission to say it's not okay. I don't want to be treated this way. And he's going to say, well, that's just who I am. And at which point you're going to have to say, I got to move on because I want somebody who gives a shit about me. All right, next question. User 966-565-706-1882 says, together over 20 years, I see girls' butts on his Instagram algorithm. I don't like it. Is it a red flag? Is it a red flag that you don't like it? No, but that wasn't the question you were answering. I was being a little cheeky there. Is it a red flag seeing girls' butts on his Instagram algorithm? Listen, I'm going to be really honest with you. It obviously upsets you. It makes you sad, right? It makes you sad. It makes you feel insecure. I'm willing to bet. Why? Because he's looking at other women, which makes you feel like you're not enough, right? Am I in the ballpark here? So even if it's not a red flag, and I'm not saying it's not, but even if it's not, it hurts your feelings. Now, what's really interesting is the question, why are you on his Instagram algorithm? Why are you in his phone or his computer? And I'm not saying you shouldn't be. I'm not saying it's inherently bad. Maybe you just happen to be on his computer because you guys share it for work, or it could be a million things. But why? That implies that you're looking. Now, I'll get clients say to me, I wasn't looking through his phone, but I was just there. And it's like, come on, let's just be honest here. We're all adults. Just tell the truth. All right. So you're in his Instagram feed. Why are you looking though? What's the fear driving the behavior? You've been together 20 years. It seems to me there's more of a story here, but you're saying, I don't like that he's looking at girls' butts. Okay. Is it a red flag? Is it a red flag that you don't like it? Again, in a way, that kind of is a red flag. You are hunting, you are afraid. How much of your fear is because of you and how much is because of him? If we were together talking, I would want to know the percentage. Okay, how much of this is really about me and my own fears and how much is about him? However, all of that being said, it could be a red flag. You don't really know. In some relationships, there's liberty to check other people out. In my relationship with my girlfriend, I know that she checks out guys and women. She's been with women before. I don't care. You want to go kick the tires, kick the tires. As long as, she's not buying, she's just kicking the tires. Or, I don't care where you get your appetite, but come home for dinner, mama. That sort of thing. And I check out women's butts. Does she give a shit? No. But those are the terms of our relationship. What are the terms of your relationship? And it hurts your feelings. Have you talked about it with him? And what's interesting is I'm willing to bet you haven't, because you would have likely said that. You would have likely told him. And I'm willing, and you would have likely indicated in your question, he denies it, or he says it's no big deal. But you didn't say any of that, which seems to indicate to me you haven't told him, which imply I'm willing to bet that you fear that would bring conflict, or he'd deny, or whatever. Is it necessarily a red flag that a man is checking out women's butts? Not necessarily. Could be. But based on what you said right here, it is not enough information. All right. And much more to come right after this short break.
I counseled with Badass Counseling for about 4 months, and Sven completely turned my life around. He kicked my butt. No shit. He made me do homework too, but I was so ready for a change that I just did it all. I'm telling you, he changed my life. Thank you so much, Badass Counseling.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
And we are back with the Badass Counseling Show podcast, lightning round. Next question. Tracy is just commenting on a previous issue that we were talking about, this issue of texting and frequency and what it's like to be in a relationship with someone and how often they're texting and so forth. Tracy says, I couldn't go 20 minutes without texting. If I went longer for whatever reason, then I was cheating, according to the person Tracy was with. Yeah, and that's why I was just asking in the question right before this, and in a couple of other questions, is how much of this problem is me and how much of the problem is the other person? And this is the constant question we have to be assessing ourselves. But is this really about me, or is this really about the other person? Or more, and it's never just one or the other. And this is why whenever I'm counseling someone, if you guys have listened to my counseling episodes of the podcast, I am often saying to clients, well, what percent is it this and what percent is it that? Oh, well, it's 75% this and it's 25% that. Or, it was 35% mom, but it was 65% dad, or whatever. Why? It forces you to really break it down. It forces you to be more precise. So in the case of this thing with Tracy here, I couldn't go 20 minutes without texting. If I went longer for whatever reason, then according to my partner, I was cheating. Okay, then I would ask the question, what percent was this whole neurotic shit about because there was a chance of you cheating, your partner's whole neurosis bullshit. What percent was because there was a chance of you cheating, and what percent was because of their own fears? And maybe Tracy would say, well, shit, you know what? I had never cheated, but, I liked flirting with men. And so it was like probably 35% me, but it was really 65% because he had been cheated on by his ex-wife. Oh. So then you got to ask yourself, well, shit, I'm in a relationship with someone who has this massive fear that is running so much of our fucking relationship. And eventually that gets fucking exhausting. And what bringing it down like that, it gives you permission to just look at it freely. And sometimes it's to say, it's really not me. But so many people don't trust themselves. It's like they need someone else to give them permission. Whether it's me, they come to therapy and say, Sven, am I crazy? Or, they need a lover or a parent or a friend to give them permission to validate that which they are thinking or that which they are feeling. But even just breaking it down, or some people, it's the opposite, that some people need to be forced to look at how much of the problem they really are. And some people are honest enough that they're willing to look at how much of a problem they really are. And that's a person of integrity who's willing to look at, sort of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, but sort of a watered down or a every man's version of it. I must constantly remind myself that I'm part of the problem I'm trying to solve. And so how am I playing into it? How am I perpetuating this problem? All right, next question. Thomas Thompson on Facebook asked the question, any advice to help ADHD issues, staying on tasks and getting done and doing what needs to be done? Generally, I don't take jargon psychological jargon on the show. Why? Because it just takes on so much meaning and it means so many different things to so many different people. Plus, also, I'm not a psychologist. And I stay in my lane. I don't touch their shit. And I don't like it when psychologists start talking about soul and spirit and shit because they don't have my training. And so I just like staying in my lane. But what I am going to do is I'm going to answer your question, but I'm just going to answer it this way. Any advice to help ADHD issues, staying on tasks and doing what needs to be done. My girlfriend has ADHD. My girlfriend built an $80 million company in Manhattan. You know the old song, I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to me. New York, New York. She built an $80 million company. President, primary shareholder since day one. 2,500 employees globally at her peak. She has ADHD. You know what she says? She says, having ADHD, and she's only realized that into her 50s now. She's in her 60s. She says, I always thought my inability to focus and my just bouncing from one thing to the next, or as you say, Sven, shiny objects. I always thought it was my biggest gift. You're fighting it, Tommy. What if you were to put yourself in a position where the very thing that you're framing as sort of a curse is actually a blessing? Where you're working at as something that you have to work around rather than, how do I capitalize on this gift? I have been taught my entire life, and now setting aside the idea of a psychological disease or malady, and if we were to just frame it as, now let's sort of water it down a bit to personality types, personality quirks, things that a person has a stigma around or has been shamed for. I've been shamed most of my life for being extremely loud, for swearing a lot, that sort of thing. And then I finally just sort of gave myself permission to be who I am, because I ran into a few people in my life who were profound leaders, who were loud, who swore. I had a pastor friend. He was my mentor out in Alameda, California, Roger, and my first year of seminary. And he had ridden with Hell's Angels, and he had played Division I football like I had. And right after the Christmas service, we walked to the parsonage, and his wife poured, it was a mix of like schnapps and like whiskey or something, but it was fucking good. And we did shots, and it was right after Christmas service. It was great. And he was the best fucking preacher, and people loved him. And he was a trained counselor, and people came to him with the worst problems. And he was the most compassionate guy. He had the laugh. He looked like he was straight out of ZZ Top, the long beard, and he had the laugh louder than Santa Claus. And he was everything a great pastor should be. But he swore, he was loud. It was just like he gave me permission by his mere presence. And so I no longer saw being loud and swearing as a curse, but in fact, a breakthrough, a blessing, and that freeing up. And so then, since then, and this is back in the fucking 90s, early 90s, fucking personal computing, for all intents and purposes, didn't exist. Computers barely existed. Small little ones on your desk. What's that? Let alone social media? Come on. That wouldn't be for another 15, 20 years, whatever. TikTok, where I first hit it big, it would be another 20 years, whatever. What's my point? I ended up capitalizing on it and being able to touch people by being my loud, obnoxious, swearing, whatever self. So the very thing that you got framed as a curse, or you may see as a disease or problematic. And I've always, I got called impulsive when I was young because I quit so many jobs and I jumped from this and that and the other thing. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to be me. If something doesn't feed my fucking soul, I'm quitting. I got called bipolar. That got wielded against me as a weapon. I wasn't bipolar and all, because, when you're becoming a clergyman, you have to go through all sorts of psychological testing multiple times. I, passed all the tests and whatever. And, but I had an ex who used that, who made up that story and weaponize that and so forth, even though it didn't exist. And trying to frame my actions as some sort of bad thing or diseased thing. And I realized in retrospect, my quitting all those jobs was a blessing. Why? It just gave me so many experiences. I can talk to so many people's experiences. I can understand what it's like to be 25 and have no idea who the hell you are. You're trying all these things, trying to find yourself. And it enables me to tell people, just quit. Just quit till you find those things you have no desire to quit. And I can confidently do it. Why? Because I've lived it. So just fucking be yourself, man. Thomas, capitalize on that. Turn it into your greatest fucking blessing. How can I work this to my advantage? All right.
You know what they say, Sven? Obsessive compulsives make the best accountants.
Isn't that interesting, right? There you go. I love that. And Thomas follows up by saying, I find my wife has accepted me the way I am. Oh, God bless her. I love that. I love that. He goes on to say then, yet I struggle with accepting it myself. Well, there it is. And you want to know why, Thomas? Because you've been shamed for who you are. And it may not even be the ADHD that you were shamed for. You were just shamed for other shit as a child. And so you've grown up hating on yourself. So any new thing about yourself that may be difficult or maybe a challenge or any new opportunity to beat yourself up, you just jump on the bandwagon and you can't accept yourself because you were taught not to accept yourself. I guarantee you have a critical voice in your past or one that didn't accept you or taught you not to trust your own voice, whatever it is. And so that voice is kicking in right now. I fucking guarantee it. Why? Because it's an age-old pattern. And so you have to drill down to what that is and begin to root that shit out, man. And there's the answer. Walk down into it. The book will take you right down into it. All right. Tyler Jones. Here we go. I've got Tyler here on TikTok. Tyler asked a question. Hey, Tyler, by the way. Okay. Tyler says, Sven, how do I control my anger? I'm quick to anger with my loved ones. I want to be patient and kind. Yeah, first of all, Tyler, you're not alone on that one, brother. If I have a cup of piping hot coffee, fresh brewed, just hotter than hell, like the old McDonald's coffee before that woman spilled it on her hoo-ha, and then the lawsuit and they had to make it not as hot, like that hot, okay? And I put it on my coffee table and then I shake the table. I agitate the table. Or I pour more piping hot coffee into that cup, even just 5 drops, or I plunk a rock into it. What's going to happen? It's going to spill out sides, isn't it? Or if I try to pour more piping hot coffee, or even if I drop in a cold, what you would think, refreshing ice cube, it's going to spill piping hot coffee because one ice cube is not going to cool off a whole, right? Or if I just shake that, agitate it, external circumstance, shaking it up, rattling it a bit, it's going to spill out. But the most interesting thing, Tyler, is it's not going to spill out on Susie, who is standing over in the corner of the room. No, it is going to spill out on Tommy and Jeffy and Billy and Dolly, who are sitting right around the table, right? Our hot coffee, our anger, always spills out when we are agitated or when more crud gets poured into us. It always spills out on those closest to us, doesn't it? The people we claim to love the most are the people we hurt the most. Why? Because we're so full of hot coffee. We're so full of crud in our love cup. And so you ask the excellent question that I get from a lot of men, but shockingly from a lot of women too. How do I control my anger? I'm quick to anger with my loved ones. I want to be patient and kind. You don't control it. Stop trying to control your anger, Tyler. That is not the answer. Anger management is not the answer long term. It's a good short-term answer, yes, and a good situational answer until you've actually healed it long term. But the long-term solution, Tyler, is that you have to go into the pain causing the anger. Anger is a secondary emotion for the most part. It is a response to past pain, present pain, or potential future pain. And you're so full of so much pain, hurt, rage, anger, fucking I want to kill you, betrayal, disappointment, abandonment, disappointment, disdain, all those feelings. So full of so much of that even the most minor agitation, the shaking of the coffee table, even plunking in one little pebble, even somebody cutting you off in traffic, even the most minor of things causes it to spill out, doesn't it? Even your kid, a loud noise, anything, right? That's because you got past shit. So you're like, well, how do I cup my cup just right so it doesn't spill out? Or how do I put a little something buffer so I don't get so agitated? No, man, you got to empty out the goddamn cup. I give you a long answer. I just say, dude, just read the fucking book. And I'm not trying to be a dick. Just read the book and do the journaling exercise in the book. You have to go down. You have to drill down deep into the very shit you don't want to touch, Tyler, into the very shit you have been running from your entire life. The book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. It will absolutely kick your ass and change your life, but you got to bring the courage, and that's no shit. All right, Rob, the Rocket has a question for me. Rob, go ahead, young man.
Okay, Sven on YouTube, Sandra says, I've been tucked in and journaling, healing with your book, working through emotions towards my big sister. Hadn't spoken for almost a year. Then she just died suddenly, and now I'm lost. How can I forgive myself?
What did you do wrong, Sandra? Does she indicate in her question what she did wrong, Rob?
I don't think she did anything wrong.
How does she open?
I've been journaling, healing with your book, working through emotions towards my big sister, but we hadn't spoken for almost a year, and then she died suddenly.
Okay. And so bottom line is you're feeling like guilt or whatever. You don't indicate anything that you did wrong, and yet you're feeling like you did do something wrong. That tells me there's more of the story there, or you've been pre-programmed. You were conditioned to believe that you're the bad person, or that you're not supposed to think about bad things. You're just supposed to think happy, happy, family, family, be nice to your sister, that sort of shit that we're often taught as kids. But the bottom line is this: you miss your sister. You feel bad that you guys didn't have the relationship that you might have wanted. You're healing from shit with your sister. Maybe you feel bad for calling out your sister, and now the person's dead, and we already feel bad. Gee, don't speak ill of the dead. And you've got this massive jumble of feelings inside of you. And the bottom line is it's got to come out, Sandra. It all has to come out. And grief, in a way, compounds it. But the beauty of grief is it really forces our hand. Grief is such a powerful emotion, and grief is such a powerful teacher. And it's this beautiful, back up in the North Country of Minnesota, we call them gully washers. A gully washer is a very, 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 very heavy rain. And it washes out the gullies, between the fields it's a cleansing. It can be so strong. Grief can be so strong that it forces a cleansing. And it's very possible that you're even crying right now, Sandra. It forces our hand to feel stuff. Now, you said you had already been doing healing work, but this is really forcing you to feel it all. And that vomiting of the soul, that heaving of the chest, that grieving it all. You're not just grieving her death. You're grieving of the loss of the relationship you probably never had. You're probably grieving the loss of the approval you never got from her, the anger you feel towards her, the guilt you feel over feeling anger towards her, the sadness. All of it's coming up right now. And, it's very interesting, you guys. Have you ever had to prime a pump to get, an emotional pump? My girlfriend sometimes, she says, sometimes, Sven, I just like to watch a Hallmark movie, the sad ones. I guess those wouldn't be Hallmarks because they always end up happy. Sometimes I like to watch a sad movie because it helps me sort of get my emotions flowing so that I can then sort of do a quick switcheroo and start thinking about, stuff with my sisters or think about stuff, with my parents who have been dead for 20 years. And it sort of gets the pump primed, and then I can flush out emotions regarding family. And the grief offers you that opportunity. Stay in it, Sandra. Just stay in it and keep flushing it all out. This is a grand and glorious opportunity. All right, next question. Baby Amy says, how do you let go and forgive? I was abused, and with no apologies, they could care less. I feel it and processed it, but I still can't get over it, and I hold on to it. Then you haven't processed it. And the mere fact that you are trying to let go and forgive, it's like you're forcing it. That definitely tells me you've processed some, but not all of it, and you can't get over it. It says there are very strong feelings there that are still there, and when you say there have been no apologies, that hurts, and then you say, and they could care less, and that hurts even more. You've got so much fucking pain inside of you, Amy, right now. And you've got to go deeper into it. The goal isn't to forgive because by you saying, how do you let go and forgive? What you're really saying to me is you're saying, this hurts so badly, I just want to get past it. How do I get past it? That's what you're really saying. And you can't race the finish line. It's not like Chutes and Ladders where there's one ladder that just shoots you right up to the top. There isn't one of those. You have to go into the pain and you have to flush it and you have to feel it. But the more you actively do that, the deeper you go into it, the faster the healing comes. So you can have speed, but it won't come at the expense of not. It won't come by not facing it. When you say no apologies and they could care less, do you know what you have in you that you may not have gone fully into, in addition to all the sadness? Because I guarantee you've got sadness in there of being rejected, that massive rejection and feeling unwanted and unwantable and unlovable. What you have inside of you is massive fucking rage and hate. And those are natural emotions. Remember, folks, feelings are morally neutral. There's nothing inherently wrong with any feeling, including rage, including hate. It's only when you go punch somebody in the face or slash their tires that it takes on a moral value. So by welcoming those feelings up and allowing them and flushing them out using the techniques I talk about, journaling, writing letters you don't send, as 2 simple methods, the more you do that, the lighter you become. But if you're trying to race to forgiveness and letting go, you're trying to scoot past the pain because you don't want to feel it because it hurts too badly. And it brings up feelings you don't want to feel, and you probably feel bad for feeling that anger and that hate. And you just want it all to be done. But you can't, there is no just done. The deeper you go, the faster the healing happens. The less deeper you go, the longer the healing takes. All right. I have time for, we've got time for a few more.
Couple.
Yeah. Okay. 2 or 3. Here we go. Next question. Okay. Here's one. Tammy Brewer, McFeely. We all know that last name, don't we? Those of us that are older. Where do we know the name McFeely?
Mr. McFeely.
There it is.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. There it is.
Yeah.
Hey, Tammy, I know you hear that all the time, but thank you for indulging me. All right. This is Tammy over on TikTok who says, my husband has been caught in many lies, hides mail, doesn't pay bills, and now in legal trouble and is mad at me for being pissed off at him. Oh, I'm sure he is. No shock there. No accountability. Why? I don't get it. Sometimes people don't take accountability. Sometimes it's not because they're a bad person. It's because in some cases they feel overwhelmed by life. They feel overwhelmed. When you started out with what you were saying, you said, caught in many lies, hides emails. And then I'm like, shit, we got a cheater going on here. But then you said, doesn't pay bills, and now he's in legal trouble. Now, granted, it still could be cheating. He could be spending money on, hookers and blow, whatever. But it's more likely that he's overwhelmed and just has become irresponsible because the responsibilities of life are too much. But what's really too much about them are all the feelings going on inside of him. However, I would have to ask this question now that I say it, where's the money going? If he's not paying the bills, is it that you guys don't have the money? So the money he's spending the money somewhere else? Or is it, no, we have the money. It's not that he's spending the money. He's just not sitting down and paying the bills. Well, that's easily fixed. You pay the bills. I mean, sit down, write the checks or do the automatic withdrawal. It sounds like the money is being spent somewhere else. And if so, where and on what? But now he has legal trouble. Yeah, that's not good. But the point you seem to be driving towards is he's mad at me for being mad at him. No accountability. Why? I don't get it. Well, which is the part you don't get? That he has no accountability or that he's mad at me for being mad at him? You have every right to be mad at him. Why? Because he's not paying bills and now he's in legal trouble. And so that jeopardizes the peace of the home and your life. And so you have every right to be mad at him. So why would he then be mad in return at you? Because you're mad at him hurts him and it reminds him, I'm sure, that he's a fuck up, or that's how he feels. And so he has to raise his anger higher. Why? To get you to back off, because it hurts. His anger is fundamentally saying, you're hurting me. Your anger is saying to him, you're hurting me. This whole thing is hurting my peace. It's hurting my sense of sanity. It's making me feel unloved and uncared about. And then you say that to him by your anger, even though you're not saying those words. And then he responds with anger saying, you're hurting me. That hurts. So he elevates even higher. That's why you guys are getting mad at each other, because he's hurting you and you're hurting him in his mind by having a response. You shouldn't have a response is what he's saying. It's like, well, hey, dumbass, you're doing all this crazy ass shit, right? And your lies, and he's just destroying the relationship because he's destroying your trust and your sense of peace in this relationship. And there's no accountability. And you say, why? I don't get it. Because fundamentally, the man is hurting inside and he's not doing the work to heal himself. And all of the external problems are reflective of internal problems inside of himself that clearly he doesn't want to do anything to heal. And change will not occur until the pain gets bad enough. His pain has not gotten bad enough to the point where he wants to heal himself. So then the question you have to ask yourself is, how do I either choose to exist in this relationship knowing he's becoming more and more of a fuck off and he's screwing this relationship? He's becoming more and more of a screw up and screwing this relationship. Or do I walk away? But the bottom line is he's just making this harder and harder for you to enjoy this relationship. Now, if he were to concede fault and concede problems and concede, I have a desire to change and I am changing. Well, shit, you'd stay. Of course you would stay because, hey, he's acknowledging it, but he's not acknowledging it. He has no interest in acknowledging it because that means admitting I'm screwing up. And some people just refuse to do that. Why? In all likelihood, because they were taught in the past that they are a screw up and it just hurts too much to do it. So it's easier to blame you or to ignore the problems. This is a person who has a lot of pain going on inside of them. All right, I'm going to take one or two more and then we're going to call it quits. Okay. Patty asked the question. Oh, good question. This is one we haven't had in a while. Patty asked the question, how do you not feel abandoned when your kids move away? Well, Patty, forgive me for asking the obvious question, but why are you interested in not feeling abandoned? The mere fact that you are asking the question, how do you not feel abandoned when your kids move away, tells me you feel abandoned, obviously. Right. But what's really interesting is your word choice there, Patty. It's a tell. Did you guys catch it? I'm going to read it back to you. You listen. You guys tell me what you think you hear here. And Patty's a good person, obviously hurting, obviously sad, right? Obviously. So I say this with all compassion, but you've told me, and this is why words are so important, and listening for what people are saying or just things that seem odd or out of place or jump out at you or whatever. Patty says, how do you not feel abandoned when your kids move away? Did the kids abandon her? She didn't say, how do you not feel alone, right? She's in the house. She's alone now. Wouldn't you feel alone? Sure. But she feels abandoned. If I take this cat that one of our daughters who came back and is living with us, and I like cats, but this cat is supremely annoying. Supremely. If I were to take, I'm not going to, but if I were to take this cat, drive it really, 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 really far out into the woods and leave it, and then drive home, I am abandoning the cat. I have an obligation to take care of the cat, to not do something illegal like abandon a cat. I have a responsibility to stay and take care of the cat. I have the responsibility. That is abandonment if I don't meet that responsibility. Okay? If you're feeling abandoned, that implies that you feel someone has a responsibility to stay and love you and take care of you. If you had said, how do you not feel alone or lonely when your kids move away? That would have been a different question. Now, first of all, there's nothing wrong with feeling abandoned. And what you need to do is grieve and be sad. Let yourself feel abandoned. Let yourself feel lonely and cry and purge it out and rage at the moon and just be sad. Let yourself be sad. And the more you flush those feelings out, eventually they will pass. We've all gone through empty nest who have had kids, and it is sad. All right? It's sad when they go off to their first day of school. Right? I mean, everything is just moving on to the next transition in life. It's sad when they marry someone, right? No, I want you to be my daughter forever. That sort of thing. But I'm going to go back to this notion of abandoned versus alone. You didn't say, how do you not feel lonely when your kids move away? See, kids are supposed to move away, largely. Although, I've dated Italian gals, real Italian gals, and they're like, oh man, our culture, you just live with your parents forever, basically. And that's not unique to Italians, Greek and other cultures, it's just like family, 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 family. And you don't move away. Okay. But generally speaking, Northern culture, Western culture, you move away. And yet you use the word abandon almost as if they are doing something to you. Like they have a responsibility to stay. Now, maybe it's not your intent to say that, Patty, but isn't it interesting you said it and you didn't say, how do you not feel lonely when your kids move away? Isn't that interesting? It's almost as if you're implying that they have a responsibility to stay and meet your love needs. Now, I may be going down a total dead end here, all right? So feel free to throw this garbage in the trash. If this does not resonate with you, Patty, tell me to go fuck a duck. I won't be offended. But what I would ask you is this: is it possible your children moved away or farther away because they felt a sense of obligation to tend to your emotional needs? Ow. Now, again, I'm probably wrong on that one. Tell me to go suck a big... Okay, I'll leave that one aside. I stopped myself. All right, Rob. Because he has to edit that shit out.
Good job, dude.
Tell me to go fly a kite, but I'm
There
probably
you
wrong.
go.
Yeah, that's kind of weak tit, but whatever. I went with it anyway.
But he says weak tit.
All right, so that makes it a little better. But the bottom line, Patty, is I actually see it a lot where a lot of times the kid will move farther away to get away from the parent if they feel like the parent is an emotional obligation. And in a parent being an emotional obligation to a child, if it's happening such that they're moving away at 18 or 22, other than, normal, I'm going off to college, whatever. But if they are moving away from the parent, often, it's not always, it's not even necessarily a majority of the time, but if they're doing it, at 22 or 24 or 33, that tells me that feeling a sense of emotional obligation to that parent very likely has been there since they were a child, that they have felt responsible for the child or for the parent, excuse me. And so they are moving away to give themselves the physical space, to give themselves permission to live their own life and not feel responsible for caring for the parent. Now, that may not be happening here, Patty, all right? I'm just throwing this out there because it is something I see. And you did use the word abandoned, which does imply somebody did something to you. But if kids were just going the natural trajectory of their lives and you saw it that way, then I would feel lonely because they didn't do it to me. They went about their lives as they should, but I just feel lonely and I miss them. Well, that's different from feeling abandoned. Do you guys see the nuance there? Rob, do you get the point I'm making here?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but again, any feeling, you don't try to not feel the feeling. You allow yourself to feel the feeling. Welcome the feelings. Embrace them. Allow it, feel it, flush it, embrace it, rage, cry, journal, flush it out. And the more you flush it out, it'll pass.
I celebrate independent kids.
Right. And it is, that can be a blessing. And Patty responds, no, I took care of them. Patty says, I'm Greek. But then she says, no, I took care of them. I don't doubt that you took care of them. I don't doubt that at all. But I would follow up with, and how much do you feel like they are responsible for meeting your needs or sticking around near you? Because one of the things that happens is the more we invest ourselves into something, anything, the more that thing becomes a part of our identity. All right. So whether it's time in the gym or investing in your career and saving up money or our children or working on a podcast or whatever it might be, or your gardens, the more you invest your time, your money, your energy, your resources, your blood, sweat, and tears into something, the more that thing, that person, that event becomes part of your identity. And so if that identity that I've just invested my years into moves away, I've lost my identity. And so there can be a feeling of abandonment, or there can be, and I'm not saying it is this way, Patty, but there can be a feeling of I'm owed something, or that why aren't they appreciating me, or why aren't they sticking around, or there can be. I'm not saying that is the case here, but what you need to really examine is, do I feel like they are doing this to me and they owe me something?
Sandy says, you did your job, be proud.
Yeah, be proud and allow yourself to grieve the loss of your children, because you have lost them in the previous state. I had a client say to me today, who is a high-level counselor himself and does a lot of corporate work and so forth. And he said something that a sage once said to him that he used to work with many, 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 many years ago. He said, that all of life is the progression from one womb to the next. Now, think about that. The initial womb is the exiting out of the womb through the birth canal from the mother. And what's the first thing we do with the baby after we slap it on the bottom and clean out its, its trachea and, let it breathe? We wrap it. Why? It's a transition into that womb. And then it's into the womb of the home. And that becomes a womb of sorts. And then it's the transition into the womb of the school. Right? It's its own sort of womb. And then it's a transition into the womb of a college. Well, college can very much be a womb. Or the womb of the military. The military is definitely a womb for many people. And so, or the transition into the womb of a marriage. All right? It's a transition from one womb to the next. And those transitions, that birthing is always painful. In the words of Joseph Campbell, there is no birth without blood and the tearing of flesh. Right. And it hurts the soul. And so your children are transitioning into a new state in their life, and you are transitioning into a new womb that does not include them. And it's hard, and it's time to grieve. All right.
And it's time we wrapped it up.
It is indeed time we wrapped it up.
I appreciate hearing about that. It's like a womb with a view.
Little playful play there. Playful play with words. All right. Rob, good episode. Any final thoughts, Rob?
Nope. Always great. Always fun. And I'm sure people appreciate the insight, as always.
Yes. Well, I tell you what. We just got a follow-up from Tammy Brewer-McFeely, who says this is the husband who doesn't pay bills and so forth.
Yeah.
She says, oh, no. He collects lots of vintage things, thousands of dollars in separate accounts.
Oy.
Yeah, not paying the bills, but buying vintage.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Tammy, no wonder you're pissed. And you got to do some real soul searching inside of you of how long you want to stay with somebody with who is jeopardizing your happiness and all this shit. You guys, the book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. This is the primary one on which your fundamental healing has to hinge. The follow-up book, the 366-day daily inspirational book that'll kick your ass as well, is Badass Wisdom. But the one for the deepest healing is There's a Hole in My Love Cup, now available in German, Spanish, French, Swedish. It's going to be coming out in the next 6 months in Lithuanian. Welcome to the Badass Counseling Show. Thank you for staying with us and all of your great questions. On behalf of my lovely team, KC over in the booth and Rob the Rocket next to me, I do hope you will dive in and slay your demons and have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.